everybody knows Art Corral, and he does wonderful presentations. As you all know, he's really dynamic and has a lot of clever things to teach us, but I think we're just doing the garden safety tips today and not the garden hacks. Okay, so.
Thank you. I and several of us thought that it would be a good idea at the beginning of the planting season to give you kind of a heads up or just remind you some of the safety things that we should be thinking about. You know, a lot of us have probably sat around and we've been sedentary most of the cold weather time. Yes. And now we're getting ready to hit the box stores or plant our own seeds or whatever and hit the garden, you know, running. But there's a lot of information that we need to process it every year before you start doing something, going from sedentary to heavy workload. So gardening safety tips. There's increasing evidence that gardening provides a lot of good, healthy for your body. Practicing reduces stress. So get out in the garden. There's a lot of human benefits. Gardening is fun, but did you know that it's also good for you? It turns out working in the garden reduces stress and so much more. Gardening can improve your physical and emotional well-being, and there's all these reasons here. The Mayo Clinic, it helps with your anxiety, your depression, and certain diseases such as heart disease and diabetes. Working in the garden induces cortisol levels, which is a chemical in your body that produces a response to stress. So there's a lot of beneficial factors from gardening out there. Even if it's just pulling weeds. I know we complain about having to pull weeds, but that's also beneficial for you. There's a reason for those weeds to be out there. Other ways to go, but take care of your mind and your body is very important. Sow some seeds, do a little watering, cut a bouquet, or pull weeds, and you'll soon find that time has flown and cares have gone away. Isn't that true? Actually, just sitting in a garden, having your cup of coffee, tea, or whatever little snack, it's very soothing for you. Listening to the birds fly and come by, or whatever, the butterflies, all those things that are very... So gardening can give you a boost of vitamin D, of course, because you're out in the sunshine and fresh air. Bones and immune system improve. Exposure to the sunlight helps older adults, that's me, achieve adequate amounts of vitamin D. Gardening has social benefits as well, as we all know. Just coming out to the garden and mingling with all you gardeners takes a lot off the mind. And so we enjoy that. And then especially when we have social events and all that, you pick all that factor in. Gardening helps your kids eat better also. A lot of times, some of these kids have no clue where their food comes from. They think it all comes from the grocery store. It all comes from those microwavable packets. Tired of your kids not eating their vegetables? Get them out in the garden. Kids that work side by side with their parents grow vegetables and more. I give my grandkids, when they come visit in the summer for 2 or 3 weeks, I give them a great big pot and some seeds, and they love to go out there and plant. And then, unfortunately, they have to go back home to Alabama, and I get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. So I'll send them a picture. I said, your zucchini was really great. Gardening is great exercise and prevents disease. Think of all the things it takes to create and maintain a garden. All right. Getting up and down, walking, stretching, moving things around. It can be quite a workout, though. Regular maintenance, weeding, raking, things like that can burn quite a bit of calories. Besides working off the extra cookie, gardening helps with dexterity, strength, and endurance. It's a whole body workout, physically active, and not only physically, but also mentally. One study found that gardening could actually lower the risk of dementia by 36%. And yeah, They say that one of the best ways to try to fight dementia is to try to stay active, whether you do gardening or reading or things like that, where you're actively having to use the old noggin, basically improves that. Use essential tools that are important, is an important aspect of good gardening. You must know which tools and equipment are needed for the specific jobs that you're doing. Don't try to improvise by, oh, I don't want to get up and go get that tool that's the best thing for what I'm doing. And so you try to use what you've got, and all of a sudden we have an accident. A chainsaw to cut the big trees, a shovel for digging. Take proper steps for injuries. Small injuries happen when you work in the garden. And if you scrape or cut yourself, you should take time out to clean it immediately. Don't say, well, don't sit there and bleed and all white and let it get all crusty and all that. Meanwhile, you're letting a possibility of germs or whatever to go get into your blood system. Use a mask. Try to use a protective nose and mouth mask to save you from dust. This is real important when you're mixing your soil. You know, when you're mixing your soil to put in pots, usually what comes in the bag is kind of a little bit too dry, and you usually have to re-moisturize it. So when you put it in a wheelbarrow or whatever, try to do that outdoors, but wear a face mask. We've kind of developed at the greenhouse where when we have to mix something, we try to put it on one of those tables that has wheels and wheel it outside where there's fresh air. Because when you start putting water and you start doing this, that dust starts flying and it gets into your nose and your lungs, and then you start creating problems. It can lead to things like asthma and things like that, or worsen an asthma that you might already have. So always be careful and try to wear a face mask, especially if there's going to be dust produced by what you're doing. Make sure that your tetanus is up to date. Very important. You never know when there's a piece of old rusty something or other or whatever lingers in your soil that's going to nick you or whatever. I've got a nick here. I don't even know where it came from, but it's right in the middle of my hand. All adults should have a tetanus vaccination every 10 years. It lives in the soil, and when the bacteria enters the body, they can cause illness. Right? So make sure that your tetanus is up to date. Can't get outdoors? Well, you can garden indoors is also great too, for those of you that love indoor plants. And I know that that's one of the reasons that every time that we interview our new students to be for the gardening class, they say, well, I took this class because I can't keep anything indoors alive. It's very important to try gardening indoors. Surround yourself with plants at work and at home. There's a lot of beneficial reasons to have plants inside your home or your office. According to NASA, indoor plants can improve the air quality. The good news is that most common house plants will clean the air with ease. Gardening safety. Gardening is a great way for physical activity and to beautify your neighborhood. However, you should protect yourself and take proper precautions. According to the Consumer Product, emergency rooms treat more than 400,000 gardening-related injuries. Follow these gardening safety tips to avoid injury, pain, and discomfort. Always enjoy your gardening chore and keep your body fit and healthy. We don't want you to be like old Sam here. 21 gardening safety tips for everyone. And you know, like I said, a lot of us sit semi or completely sedentary during the cold weather. And then all of a sudden spring comes around and they run to the Lowe's or whatever where they get their plants and buy 200 plants of this. And then all of a sudden they're doing heavy work and all that. And that's where you start getting into trouble. Not only should you do like warm-up exercise and all before you're going to do a heavy gardening task, but actually all during the year, you should be doing something active to keep your body kind of semi in shape and get your muscles, and then try to do some limbering, not lingering. You can use things like this to kind of help you limber more throughout the year. You know, on part of my workout 2 times a week, I use some of these bands for different exercises. Like one of the ones that's really easy, and you can do all kinds of is what we call the pull apart, you know, to get the muscles in your upper body. All you have to do is just something like this. You know, you whoops, I need a new band. These are getting old. Okay, but anyway, you know, just do a few because if you can be using those muscles or whatever for what you know, and then you can use several of these to do all kinds. Whether you put them on your, you step on it, and you can do, you know, something like this, whether it's one arm, or you can put it around a post or whatever, and do this kind of stuff in every direction with your arms, and then you can also do it with your legs, and then you can do something that we call good mornings. Is you just step on it and put it behind your, and then do this for your back, like here. See, things like that. Now you notice I have different thicknesses of it, so it depends on your ability or whatever. But anyway, just do simple things like that to keep your body in shape. And this is something that you can do while you're watching TV or whatever to keep your body limber, and basically a little bit of strength is developed while you're sedentary. And so once you hit the guard, but it's also good to do things like this right before you go out and try to dig a hole to plant a tree or something like that, because you start getting loosening up the muscles. I know that sometimes when our muscles are cold, the slightest little thing will, all of a sudden you got to twitch. You know, sometimes people, just to brush their teeth, they go like that. I was like, oh, something right here. All right, so plan ahead. You know, it seems like every gardening class that we try to teach or tell, the first thing that you should always do, whether you're preparing a garden or you're going to install a garden, where the word plan always shows up. You should have a plan. Did we tell the students on Saturday, Enrique? Yes. Always have, what is your plan? So plan ahead. Use a basket or a large container to carry supplies. The basket should be carried with both hands, and so on and so on. Proper body motion is what you need. It is also highly suggested to perform warm-up exercises. There you are. Number 2. Wear protective clothing. When you are ready to go your garden to do any work, take care of your lovely pants. You must wear protective clothing to save you from any harm, sunburn, or injuries. We also have to think about dressing for the sun. I know a lot of us are, not me, but a lot of people are fair-skinned and they burn a lot easier. Remember, even if it's cloudy, the ultraviolet rays are still coming through the clouds. And that's where you can get a bad sunburn. Wear safety goggles, long pants, long sleeve shirts. And I've got a lot of props up here, you know, your safety goggles, or always try to wear those because you never know. Sometimes you're cutting stuff, and if it's a little hard piece of wood or something, when you clip it, it might jump towards your finger, or you're trying to reach that branch inside the middle of the tree, and you went like this to get that other branch out of the way, and all of a sudden you let go, and that branch comes and whacks you right in the face. All right? So always be prepared for what could happen, what's possible. When you use any machines to cut wood, you must wear hearing protection also to prevent that, what is it? Tinnitus. Let's see, wear safety gloves, which help to protect. Now, I know that a lot of us have gardening gloves, and I brought 3 samples of gardening gloves. These are the ones, you know, for very simple, and these are washable. These are basically like if you're pruning rose bushes to protect your arms up to here. And some of us, you know, we take blood thinners. So the slightest little poke or whatever, my arms sometimes, they used to be, they were like I had been through war. Because, I mean, every little prick, and it right just like that, I would have a bruise because of the blood thinners. So I wear these, plus a long sleeve little old jacket. However, one of my friends saw that I had these marks on, and he said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I was pruning my pomegranate bush and my rose bush." And no matter how careful I was, and I didn't know sometimes when I got pricked or scratched, and I go inside and my wife said, "What in the world happened to you?" So anyway, that friend of mine gave me this. Now this is for welding. So the sleeve goes up to here, and then the gloves that come for the weld. Of course, this is probably fairly expensive, but you know, right now I don't have any marks at all because I just pruned my pomegranates and rose bushes last week. But this is great. It's just a sleeve that comes up to here, and then my welding gloves. Right? Am I going overboard? You could say, but heck, if it saves me, I'm gonna use it. Plus, it was given to me. So, all right. Use insect repellent. I know a lot of us are out there, and all of a sudden, I'll come in and I'll have this big red welt somewhere, and I have no clue what bit me. Well, what was it? I'd like to find out what it was that bit me. And then wear long sleeves, high rubber boots, wide brim hat with pants inserted in your socks. And of course, the old sunscreen. Always try to use sunscreen. You must apply sunscreen or sun protective factors of at least 15 SPF to protect you from sunburn. Use the tools safely. You must use the right tools for the right job and keep them in the right place. Always try to keep them away from children. There's a lot of activities. Like I said, I like to do gardening with my grandkids when they come see me in the summer. It's a lot of fun, and they really learn a lot. I know that I tell everybody, they say, "Well, how did you get into gardening?" I actually got into gardening because when I was little, my dad would plant tomatoes or whatever in the backyard. My mom would plant her flowers in the front yard, and I was there to help them. And that's how I started learning and getting interested in gardening. Some garden power tools are very sharp. You have to use them carefully. If you're using electric tools, watch where the cord is and unplug when not in use, especially if there's children around. And then it gives you some information on some of the web that you can go and how to use tools and properly. Now, also use the right kind of tools. Should this guy have been on that chair to try to trim the high branches? Don't let that happen to you. Yeah, don't let that happen to you. Okay. Now notice this person here has those high boots to protect him from any possible injury. Also using the right tools. Those knee pads, what I have, I don't have those I used to when I played volleyball, but I've got like 3 or 4 of these that people have given me because they want me to be safe. But this really saves my knee. I use it all the time. Also, my neighbors, because I help them with a lot of their gardening, they gave me this. It's got a neat pad on. Yes. You can use this. You can use this as a little, like that, kneel on it, or if you flip it over, it's a little bench. Now, at my age, because I have trouble with my knees, and somebody asked me the other day at the community college class, I have trouble getting down and doing stuff on the garden, on the regular or the low beds, because I can't get up afterwards. So I told her, when I always go out there to garden, if I'm going to be on the ground, I always put a 5-gallon bucket next to me or this thing right here, because I need help propping myself up. I can't do it with my knees. And I don't want to have knee replacement surgery at my age. But this really helps on that, or a 5-gallon bucket. Can they see it there? Okay, it's just a little bench. It can become a bench, or if you flip it over, it can become a kneeler. Okay, you can say your prayers while you're kneeling. There's a lot of things out there that can help make your gardening easier and all that. This is something that saves my back every year. And because instead of bending over to pick up stuff and to throw in the trash or whatever, these things work great. So now what I do is when I prune my trees, I just let the branches fall on the ground, and then I'll do cleanup. And all I do is this: pick them up and then cut them in small pieces into my trash can, and away it goes. But this thing really saves my back right here. Yeah. I know that while we're on that subject, I know that Bev and Penny do an accessible gardening presentation that is just great. And they've got all kinds of ways, and hopefully maybe they'll, in the near future, they might consider doing that for us. But they've got a lot of ways that you can adjust or make current tools or whatever to help you with things like that, to alleviate the pain on your body. Okay? But I use that all the time. I think that's the fourth one I've gone through. Avoid prolonged repetitive motion unless you are accustomed to the activity. Again, that old back, you're not used to that. And all of a sudden, if you've been sitting around couch potato most of the winter time, and then you go out there and you start on that, even with a shovel, do a few minutes of that, and then maybe change to something else that's going to use a different part of the body, so that you don't put all that long stress on that part of the body. Make your gardening activities varied and tasks total about every 15 minutes. Try to change to something else. Like I said, I'll prune some of the branches on my tree, and then I'll switch to, okay, and now I'll pick them up, and standing straight up, I can cut them right into the trash can into small pieces. So I don't have to bag them. I just put them straight in the trash can. Take short breaks. Like I said, don't do prolonged, and make sure that you're drinking water the whole time. Okay. So rehydrate yourself. You should take short breaks. You must do the work by rationing it. As a result, you will not lose your energy and can finish them smoothly. All right. Keep in mind on your posture. Again, when it goes to lifting, try not to use your back to lift pots and things around, move things around the garden. Try to use proper posture. Also, like I said, Bev and Penny have a lot of good tools that will save and allow you to use proper posture better than if we don't use them at all. Avoid bending. If you want to work by seating or bending, it may not be a bad idea. That's where that little bench that I have that turns into a kneeler, it helps me a lot, because I can sit, instead of bending there and doing something in a pot and all that, then I can sit there and do whatever I need to do. Okay, so there's a place in our website for the people that are at home. Under the Learn Garden topic, under the links, Fitness for Gardeners, 2 links. One is a stretching PDF. Don't let the dirt hurt stretches. Gardening and your health, protecting your knees and back. And it's a what? It's a brochure. Hope you all got that. Number 15, avoid using your back for heavy jobs, things like that. Try to use the proper posture. If you use harmful chemicals, use them carefully. Always read the label and all that. In your garden, if you use any chemicals, read the label, plus keep them away from your children and pets. And make sure, usually these chemicals will have a warning. Do not spray while the wind is blowing. Your tree's in front of you, and you sit there spraying it, and guess which way the wind's blowing? And you didn't take that into account. Well, where's all that spray going? All right. So be very careful when you're spraying or using any kind of chemical, even spraying bugs. Make sure that the wind is not blowing towards you. check the temperature. Even a short time in high temperature can be a main cause of health problems. And unfortunately, before I got into master gardening, I had that happen to me. I went out there, I said, I'm just gonna be out there 5 minutes. Well, the chore became longer and longer, and all of a sudden I saw something else, and all of a sudden I started getting heat stroke because I'd been out in the hot sun. I didn't realize how hot it was, and I was only gonna be out there 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, anyway, my wife had to call the EMS because they had to put a, whatchamacallit, right. But that was before I became a smart master gardener. Try to do your jobs under the shade. If you're working on, like some of us have a lot of pots, especially succulents, and when the spring comes around, we need to go in there and clean up all the dead stuff that died during the winter and all that. See if you can move that pot to a shaded place and sit in the middle of the sun and work on it. Put a radio on and enjoy it. Get you some water. Drink plenty of plain water. Keep away from alcohol or other liquids which contain a lot of sugar, including fruit juice. Plain water is the best thing to cure your thirst and to replenish your body, to hydrate it. Leave the workplace if you feel ill. Like I said, I didn't feel ill. I didn't get nauseous. But when I went to get up, everything turned white. I was about to pass out. So make sure you take those breaks and rehydrate yourself. Keep your working area clean and clear. Look at these guys. That's one of the biggest common mistakes I see a lot of times. People will get through raking, and all of a sudden they lay the rake down, especially facing up like that. Yeah. That's an accident waiting to happen. And then this guy, he just left his hose out there and he was trying to prune, and all of a sudden he's all tangled up. So put things away, get them out of the way, keep your area clear. Watch for buried objects, and then use the right tools also. Remember that there might be objects underneath, whether it's your utility lines or things like that. Well, when we moved into this house that we live in now, I didn't realize that the previous owners had one of those garden lights way out there in that corner of the yard, and there was the live wire was running through the flower bed all the way over there. And so I said, well, where does this wire belong? And I started pulling on it, more wire kept coming up. So anyway, I kind of followed it and found out it was actually a live wire to that light way out there. All right. Many tools are made with fingers, grits, molded, so that you have proper ergonomic feel of the tool. But always, before you start digging, kind of assess your area and see what are the possibilities of things being buried that are harmful. A lot of times, these builders, when they build, they discard a lot of their waste or whatever, and then just cover it. And if you're out there digging and you're using your hands, all of a sudden you're liable to come across an old rusty nail or piece of metal or whatever that they buried there. People with larger hands will find that their fingers overlap the ridges, causing pain, soreness, and calluses. Those with smaller hands will have spread their fingers. It's all about, try not to use your hands at all to dig into the ground. We've got those little bitty rakes, and I forgot to bring mine, that just has a little handle, and it actually is like this. And that's what you use to scrape don't use your hands. Avoid accidents by using tools for their intended purpose. Again, I said, don't try to be an innovative person out there and you've got one tool that's supposed to do something and you're trying to use it to do something that it requires a tool that is specially made for that. Remember that it's like even in the kitchen, and you hear this all the time. I know I do because I watch a lot of Food Channel programs, and they always say the sharpest tools are the safest tools. All right, the same thing like in the kitchen. If you're trying to cut that tomato and that knife doesn't go through it, you start putting more pressure and all of a sudden that tomato slips and turns on you, and guess what? So does the knife. So make sure that your tools are kept well and in good shape. Watch for natural dangers. Beware of the visitors because this is their home. All right. So make sure that you're aware of what might be in your garden. It's probably one of these things that keeps biting me that gives me that big red welt about that big, but I don't know which one. Because I never feel it when they bite me until it starts itching and all of a sudden there's a welt. It could be one of these little guys. Use proper ergonomic posture. Refers not only to your whole body position, but also to the angle of your wrist while you're doing work and all that. Don't try to overdo it. Studies have shown that people lose up to 25% of their grip strength when the wrist is bent. So make sure, if you're going like that, try to get it ergonomically straight when you're able to work. Okay, what to do in case of an injury? If you cut your finger or hand while gardening, apply direct pressure to the wound with a clean cloth. Visit the emergency room. That's, if you have to, if it's that severe. Continuous pressure does not stop the bleeding after 15 minutes. You notice persistent numbness or tingling in your fingertips or have trouble moving the fingers. You are unsure of your tetanus immunization status. You are unable to thoroughly cleanse the wound by rinsing with a mild soap and plenty of clean water. Be aware and garden with care. Top 10 garden injuries causing the things that cause the items that cause. Look at what's number one. Lawnmowers. Approximately 7,000 annual A&E visits. Flower pots. How do flower pots? All kinds of ways, whether you're lifting and moving or whether you have a pot somewhere where it's not stable and all of a sudden there's children playing or even you and you just happen to bump on what it's standing on, all of a sudden here comes a flower pot. So look at it, it's number 2. Okay, hedge trimmers, 5,000. Secateurs, which are pruners and clippers. Spade, the flower trough, the garden fork, the shears, the hose or sprinkler, like that guy that didn't move his hose and it fell over it, and the garden cane. What are
show that a chainsaw is one of the safest things.
As long as you don't turn it on. No, actually, going back to lawnmowers, I had a friend named Jim who was doing his front lawn and his son was helping him. He was a teenager. And while Jim was down with the pruners cutting on the edges, his son was doing the lawnmower. And all of a sudden, it hit a piece of glass and lodged it right on his jugular vein right here. The thing that saved his life was they didn't try to pull the glass out because he would have bled to death. But by the time they got him to the hospital, the doctor said that was the best thing you could have done was to leave the glass in. Okay? So you never know. You think, really, lawnmowers and all that? But freak accidents like that can happen.
You think that kid did that on purpose?
The kid?
Yeah.
Nah, he was a good kid. Okay, so let's kind of review here what we've done for about the last 40 minutes. Proper clothes, warm up, limbering exercises, gloves, sunscreen, drink plenty of water, shoes. Always wear closed shoes, not sandals. And the better, the harder the leather or whatever, the better. Safety glasses. Watch out for thorns and other sharp objects. Electrical objects, like I said, that wire that was buried that I didn't even know was there in my yard. Appropriate age helpers, make sure you supervise those little guys all the time.
Or the real old guys.
Yeah, real old guys. Appropriate, okay. The right tools, sharp and clean tools, right size tools, poisonous or toxic and prickly plants. There's a lot of plants that a lot of people don't realize are toxic, and to some of us more than others. So always be aware. What do you have growing in your yard? What do you have growing inside your house? The majority of the indoor plants are actually toxic. So if you've got children or pets, beware. Find out a little bit about those plants. I know kids and pets love to mess around with those indoor plants. Dangerous visitors, spiders, scorpions, and so on. So be nice to your body. The conclusion, we hope that you have more necessary gardening safety in your garden now, that you'll think about these things as you start your busy season on gardening. These are just some of the products that came from my backyard trees. All right. Oh, I'll finish up with this old Chinese proverb. If you want to be happy for an hour, get drunk. If you want to be happy for 2 weeks, get married. But if you want to be happy for a lifetime, work in the garden. Happy and safe gardening.